Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are going live. We're live here in the Zoom room. We're also live on YouTube. So do us a favor, when you have logged into the room, type in where you're watching us from because we're always curious where people are coming from, given the fact that we're in 74 different countries. I'm going to put on a timer. That's your cue to have a look at who's online with you now and make sure that your group are logged in for this event. It's going to be really good. Welcome online, ladies and gentlemen. I can see people logged in from Wisconsin in the USA, Western Australia, Perth, Canada, Arizona, Thunder Bay, Ontario, Las Vegas, Illinois, Canada, Bahamas. Woohoo! Wish I was there with you. Perth, Canada, Arizona, Ontario, Chicago. People are still entering the room right now as we speak, which is fantastic. With that in mind, some people don't speak fluent English. And so what we've done with that is we do have closed captions that you can read along with at the same time during the event. So have a quick listen to this.
Por favor, vaya a la parte inferior de la pantalla en Zoom o YouTube y haga clic en subtítulos para leer en español.
Kérlek, menj a képernyő aljára, a Zoomon vagy a YouTube-on, a Closed Caption részre, és ott el tudod olvasni magyarul a feliratot.
Silakan klik di layar bawah pada Zoom atau YouTube dan klik caption untuk membaca dalam bahasa Indonesia.
Pour les sous-titres en français, veuillez cliquer au bas de votre écran Zoom ou YouTube sur CC ou Closed Captions.
Zoom または YouTube の画面の下部に移動し、字幕をクリックして日本語で読んでください。
請到屏幕底部點閱隱藏字幕以閱讀中文。
Παρακαλώ πηγαίνετε στο κάτω μέρος της οθόνης, στο Zoom ή στο YouTube και κάντε κλικ στους υπότιτλους για να τα διαβάσετε στα ελληνικά.
請到屏幕底部點擊隱藏字幕以閱讀中文.
אנא עברו לתחתית המסך בזום וביוטיוב ולחצו על תרגום לכתוביות בעברית.
Proszę zejść na dół ekranu na Zoomie lub YouTubie i kliknąć napisy, żeby przeczytać po polsku.
Alrighty, I love the fact that we have so many different languages that we can hear from with all these people around the world. Do me a favor, if you're excited about your journey for Neumi in 2025, type in yes in the chat because this topic today, you're going to hear from a panel of the highest income earners across the world in Neumi, some of our crowns. And I love the fact that with everyone you're going to hear from, we didn't plan every word we're going to say today. Why is that? Because we're actually talking about a topic that every single person has their finger on the pulse with, because we're already started the year. We've already helped people vision map, goal set, and plan out what they're going to achieve during 2025. So what I'm going to quickly do, if you just give me 1 second, I'm going to move my slide. I just realized I'm going to need to move that one from here to somewhere else. And then I'm going to give you a little screen. Now, first thing I want to say is, if you haven't done this, do you have your notepad? Do you have a pad? And do you have a pen? Or if you're the modern version, do you, whoops, wrong screen. Do you have something that you can utilize to make sure that you take some notes? Just give me 1 second, guys. I just noticed there's one thing that I should have set up and I have not done. Where is it? Individual screen. Got it. Great. Okay. So we're going to talk about today vision mapping and mapping out your year of 2025. And do me a favor, as soon as anyone sees Alex Monterosa logs in, you know, because Alex is running a little bit late. He's stuck in some traffic. And of course, that means I won't be able to bring him on until he arrives in the room. So to kick off, mapping out your year for 2025, mapping out your vision. There are 6 steps that we're going to suggest you consider, and each one of us are going to sort of talk about those different topics as crowns in the business. So the first thing I want to do is say, okay, in your little circle there, put down vision. What do we mean? setting the big, hairy, audacious goal. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Have you pinned a rank to that? What does your life look like? And of course, Jerry's going to talk about that. Steve Scott says vision boards don't work. And I agree, on their own, they don't work. As a part of the overall picture, I've got one right here. Has the watch that I've got on my hand, which was a goal that I had to hit ground before I would get it. So there is things that are, worthwhile having up stuck around the house, like vision boards and things like that, as long as you map them out with a bit more detail. The other thing we want to talk about briefly today is also the Wheel of Life. If you haven't seen that before, essentially what it says is, some people will, push themselves to achieve fantastic goals, and they haven't thought about mapping in things such as, financial information. They haven't thought about factor in time, spiritual time, all these factors that make you well-rounded. So we're going to talk about the vision mapping first, and we're going to talk briefly about the Wheel of Life, how that might impact you. Then we're going to talk about goal setting, and we'll get Karen to talk about that, and the peak-to-peak principle, which I'll talk about when, or we'll let her talk about when we get to that. Then activity steps. Now, I say this at the start about having the finger on the pulse because, honestly, with stacks of different people, there's an Australia-New Zealand blitz that's already started, for example. We've mapped it out with all those individuals, activity steps to do every single day, every single week, to make sure that that big, hairy, audacious goal is doable, because you have steps that you can track. And then the key point of all of this is, the diet starts Monday does not exist. Every time you say, I'm going to start a diet on Monday, Monday never comes. It's a fictitious place in human productivity. So with that in mind, you need to start immediately. Okay. So to kick off the topic and to kick in with one of our huge crowns around the world, I'm going to ask Jerry if you can unmute, and I'm going to get you to talk to that about setting your vision first up.
Thank you, Michael. Anyway, vision mapping is a really important subject, because the most important thing about it is you have to know yourself. And I think that's one of the things that in network marketing, it's real important that we step into that vision of who we are. And I think most of our lives prior to getting in business for ourselves, we've been kind of told what to do, how to have success, to go to so much school, to go to so much college. And it's usually someone else's vision. I remember when I was in graduating high school, a friend of the family was on the board of examiners for the dental school at University of Southern California. And he said, yeah, I could, with my influence, I could get you into dental school. And I thought to myself, wow, I'm in high school, I'm like 17, 18 years old. Being a dentist, you could make lots of money, that's kind of where your head is at that age. What can money buy you? And one of my frames of reference was my father was a school teacher. He never made much money. And so, my mother was a little dissatisfied with all of that. As I was growing up, we didn't ever kind of have enough money as a family. But so I wanted to make money. And that was my goal at that time. But then I ended up going to a college. I had a wrestling scholarship to a college that was a veterinarian school, Colorado State University. And so I kind of changed my idea and my vision of my life, because I grew up with animals, loved animals. I thought, I'm going to be a veterinarian. And so I started taking lots of animal type classes and studying parasitology. And we were doing studies on animals and actually infecting animals with parasites and then killing them and dissecting them. And I didn't like that aspect because I loved animals. So I'm like, I don't like this. And then I had an injury, and it was a spine injury. And no one could help me, but a chiropractor was able to help me. So I changed my vision again. And so the reason I bring this up is it was a pathway to discovery of myself and who I was. And I really, as I was on the path of becoming a chiropractor, and even prior to it, I was realizing that I don't like drugs. I don't like surgery. I'd already witnessed numerous surgeries. I'd been around the operating table. I had special classes where we were, invited into the surgical room. And it just seemed very dramatic, very major intervention. And I didn't see good outcomes from surgeries, you know, from my perspective. So I didn't like it. I was eliminating drugs. I saw, you know, the drugs, practically every drug has side effects. I didn't like the outcomes of surgeries. And so I thought, you know, if there was another way, I would do that. So it was, again, it was a self-discovery. And I think that's the most important thing about vision mapping is understanding who you are and not taking opinions from all of the people that are in our lives, telling us, oh, you should do this. Oh, you should do that. And even in school, you know, you go to your school counselor and they tell you, oh, here's what your aptitude says you should do. And, you know, my aptitude tests were telling me to be an engineer. And I would be extremely bored being an engineer. And as I got closer to who I am, I realized I really want to help people. And that was what drew me into that part of medicine, was the fact that I could help people naturally. And it further, in network marketing, it even expanded on that vision that we could actually help people exponentially. If we bring people into Neumi, we help not only those people that we bring in, but the people that they know and who they know. And as it spreads into other countries, you touch lives around the world. And then as I backtrack, you know, my father not making a lot of money, he touched lives. As a school teacher, it was amazing the amount of people that had huge respect for him and that knew him and loved him because he helped change their lives. And we would go almost anywhere. We would travel hundreds of miles, and he would always meet people that he knew because he had touched lives, and those lives touched other lives. And he literally became famous. And so his whole life became one of great contentment because that's just who he was. And that's one of the most valuable things that we can have as a human being on this planet, is being content with who we are, being content with knowing that we are here and we're serving a purpose and we're serving people and we're helping people and we're changing lives. So one of the things about vision mapping is make sure you're clear with who you are and set those goals, and a map, just like every map shows you, you know, how to get from where you are to where you would like to go. And you look at that in your life, which takes reflection. This is a very important thing and a very important subject. So spend some time on it. And as you look at the weekly, monthly, yearly road ahead, look at the things that times that you can really accelerate and work really hard. And by working hard in network marketing is just exposures. For me, my success has always been, and as I've observed other people, the people that make the most exposures earn the most money. They have the most success. And even if you're not good at it, even if you're calling people or meeting them or sharing online, even if you're not good at it, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I believe you get better at it because you start being more yourself. You start tuning into more who you are and being with people and listening to them and listening from that place of caring and that heart. That is success. And to just emulate my father, here's a man that was comfortable with himself, was content, knew that he was here, he knew his purpose here, and it doesn't get any better than that. So don't worry if you don't have some education. Don't worry if you're even a high school dropout. If you knew how many very successful people, very wealthy people were actually dropouts, it would boggle your mind. In fact, the list includes Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, believe it or not, John D. Rockefeller, Quentin Tarantino, Orville and Wilbur Wright. Even Albert Einstein dropped out at age 15. Somebody that we equate to one of the smartest men that ever lived, dropped out of high school at age 15. So those people realized that perhaps school wasn't them. They struck out on because they knew who they were, they had a vision for themselves, and they acted on it. And I think that's the most important thing. You know yourself, you understand who you are, and you act upon it. And you map it from there. And you take one step at a time. And you, in the map, you'll always see where the obstacles are because you have a map. If you have a road map, you can look and see, well, the road is washed out at that point. I've got to come up with some options. And maybe in your life, you know, this summer, my daughter's getting married, and it's a huge deal, and it's kind of an obstacle to business because it takes a lot of focus and a lot of time, but that's okay because you build in because you have a map. You know what to do during that time, so you can optimize the time before and after, and that's why it's important to plan. What's the saying? If you fail to plan, you just as well plan to fail. And that's no truer words I've ever spoken. So thank you, Michael. I know Karen wants to pick up from here, but I'm all ears.
Actually, before we do that, that was brilliant. I'm just going to touch on one other aspect. So we said, if I just bring the screen back up, start off with the vision, yeah, the big vision, the big, hairy, audacious goal. What do you want to achieve? Everything that he just said there. I love the fact that it's like decide who you want to be, you know, but connect with your emotional drivers, which kind of taps into the next one. If you've ever seen the Wheel of Life, it basically says family, you know, spiritual life, financial life, you know, work, etc., etc. So you could put as many spokes in the wheel as you like, but generally, it's all about being balanced. Because if you achieve massive goals, but your family leaves you because you are so dedicated to Neumi, you forgot all about them, have you really achieved success? No, in fact, you're a failure. So it's important to think about it from multiple aspects. So when you're planning that out, and we've done this with a couple of people, or quite a number of people recently, I would just encourage you to sit down and someone typed in vision boards that worked for them. Vision boards on their own is like wishful thinking, but vision boards mapped out, like Jerry said, who do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? Think of the wheel of life. What do we want to do for the family? What do we want to do for finances? What do we want to do in self-growth? And if you can put pictures of that sort of stuff around the house, one of the things that'll help you vision map right now, and maybe Karen might even refer to this in her goal setting, but we have the Diamond Retreat, which is an amazing trip. I've never been to Europe, and I cannot wait to get on the Mediterranean cruise, and a lot of people are really excited about that. So do you have on your vision board pictures of going through Rome and Spain and all that sort of stuff as well? So that's just the second aspect. So what I'm going to do now is, as we said, then it goes into goal setting and peak to peak. I'm going to hand now to Karen. Karen was like, I've said this one before, when Karen joined Neumi, I needed a neck brace because things took off so fast and just accelerated. So you've got a lot of wealth of knowledge to draw on from Karen. So Karen, over to you.
Thanks. And I know you say that frequently about me, but I want to acknowledge Jerry because a good part of that acceleration was Jerry. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. There's so many things that you guys both touched on that I just want to touch on. I love when you talk about, you know, relating your goal to who you are and what you want from life. The Egyptians had something they called sacred commerce, and they firmly believed that your spiritual life should not be separate from your business life, and that you should conduct your business in a way that you actually have spiritual growth. And I believe in that strongly, and I think it's an important factor. There's so much growth in this business. I don't imagine you could be involved in another business where you'd see this type of growth. And it's interesting what Jerry said about the people that leave home early. I left home. I was a dropout. I later put myself through school, or through different courses, but I was on my own at 17. And I supported myself at 17. I had my own apartment, and I got myself a good job. But one of the things I learned during that time was how to work really hard. You know what I mean? There was nobody that if I couldn't pay my rent, there was nobody that was going to help. There was nobody that was going to buy food. I ate a lot of craft dinner, you know what I mean? So I could buy nice clothes and things. But it really teaches you toughness. And I learned to start to depend on myself. You know, when that happened to me early on, I learned to depend on myself. And I think it's a key thing. And there was a chapter in a book that I've been reading over the past, over Christmas, and it was given to me by my upline, Larry Wilson, when I last saw him. But it's written by Robin Sharma, who's the man who wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari and Who Will Cry When You Die. And it is so good because I just want to preface it a little bit. You know, I've written several books on network marketing, and I've always looked at, you know, what makes certain people successful where others aren't. You know, if you know you can make the kind of money that we do in network marketing, why isn't everybody working really hard? Well, the answer is they don't believe that they can do it. And some of that belief comes from the fact that they don't necessarily put in the work. So I just wanted to read what Robin said. It comes from one of his chapters, and I strongly advise this book. I've actually got it here. I'm just going to read the quote. He talks about practicing tough love on yourself, to make choices that you know are the right ones. The tougher you are on yourself, the easier life will be on you. Successful people have the habit of doing things failures don't like to do. Successful people don't like doing them either necessarily, but their disliking is subordinated to the strength of their purpose. And it is so true, because when I came on board here, I worked like crazy. I know when Jerry came on board, he was working like crazy. You know, we came in, we focused, and we worked hard. And, you know, I know that Michael is going to talk a little bit about the 90-day run, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. But setting your goals, you know, your goals can be simple. They don't need to be lofty, but the more you can align them, as Jerry said, with who you are, the stronger that they're going to be. Like, network marketing wasn't necessarily my first love. I want to help animals and, you know, trees and things like that. You know, that's who I am. But anyway, network marketing lets you spend quality time with the things that you love best. You know, if you align those goals and you work on your vision mapping and all of those kinds of things. When I first got involved in network marketing, I had been a fashion designer. I had quite a bit of success. I was in a bunch of different countries, and I'd been on talk shows and all of those kinds of things. But the first Gulf War came along, and over 50% of my clients went bankrupt owing me money. So I was tap dancing over fire. And I had built my business with blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, literally, through heart surgery, I built that business. You know, I really, and so I was desperate. And I had a very bad opinion of network marketing personally, because when anybody ever approached me, it seemed like they were, you know, blabbering on about a get rich quick scheme. I was like, you know, secretly thinking, you know, get a job. But anyway, when I ran into that, luckily at the same time, I came across a product for my bird. A girl had told me that this algae product was great for birds. And I said, gee, I wish they'd made it for people. Well, long story short, I ended up doing it. And I was doing it. I didn't have big goal sets or anything like that at that point. I was doing it to save my house, you know? And when you own a company, you know, you can't let your employees see you sweat and that type of a thing. So it aligned perfectly. And I was starting as a parachute. But as I developed and went through that company, I then started aligning my goals to the things that I really wanted in my life. And I became a strong advocate of network marketing. I mean, it is the greatest equalizer that you could ever come across. You know, somebody that mows the lawns can be every bit as successful as someone who's a doctor, you know. So spending that time, having your own goals, you know, a goal is a dream with a deadline. So, you know, the whole part of targets and goals. And one of the things that when I came into network marketing, I was successful right away. I was operating from sheer desperation, but it was also the fact that I had been in business and I was no stranger to targets and goals. So when I came on board, I set targets and goals for myself. How much money would I need to save my house? And then as I started to have some success and people that I was introducing started seeing what I was doing, and I was having so much fun. It was fun to be working with me, and you know, we were all having fun, and so we all set targets and goals. And pretty soon we created momentum. If you build like that, you know, first you're building with yourself, but then you look at your team, you're working with, you're not their boss, but you're helping them, you know, align how, you know, the steps and the different things that they should do to make for instance, 1-star, how they're going to get there. And as you do that, this enthusiasm starts to take place in the group, and it starts to build all of this momentum, and it's contagious. One of the things I really wanted to share today is happy attracts. If you can put love into your downline, or happiness, or you know what I mean, make it a fun place. Most people out there are like I was when I first entered network marketing, in a situation of quiet desperation. They really are. And stress blocks creativity. You know what I mean? You're so stressed, and paddling harder doesn't help if your little boat is pointed in the wrong direction. And so if you make your business fun and you connect people up to our calls, like Neumi is such a happy company. If you connect people up to our calls, they see all the things we're doing. I mean, it's wonderful to build this business because the company doesn't charge for anything except the product. We've got wonderful tools, and we have to thank Michael a lot for that because he spent so much time doing it. But we have all of this. It's all together. We're giving people hope in their lives. You know, if you realize the opportunity that you're giving people, you know, and really think about it, what you're offering them, and then you connect them up, you build those connections that really create a team. For instance, Amway was really good at it. Everybody knows they probably would never want to join Amway. They've got a terrible compensation plan, in my opinion. But one of the things they're very good at is they build connections and they create community. And I've never seen a more wonderful company than Neumi. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I believe it's a once-in-a-lifetime company. We've been voted in the top 5% of companies out there to join, you know, and it just keeps getting better as we expand around the world. We've had some bumps, there's been hiccups, you know, but every company has that. I've had my own company. Anybody that has their own company realizes there's always drama. You know, when you're building a business, there's drama, but you know, that's just life, and it's how we grow. So those are some of the things. Work with a team, help set goals with your team, get everybody going in the same direction. The other thing I would say that's really important is activity equals income. You know, that be a little tougher on yourself is really, really key. Like when I came on with Neumi, I was so excited. I was a bit manic, but I was very, very excited, you know, and that excitement is contagious. The happiness is contagious. So we were all working and trying to go as fast as we could and trying to help each other. So what I love about our compensation plan is you rise by lifting others. If you look at the compensation plan, if you want to make that next jump, easiest way is to take 3 people there. Okay. That's the easiest way. That's going to take you to the next level. Now, I just want to mention when I'm saying that, don't just build 3 legs because you need 6 at the top of the compensation plan. 3 will unlock, the power of 3 and those nice things. But always remember you need 6, so you're not just giving everybody away, okay? I've seen too many people build like that. They build this long, and depth is important, okay? But you also have to build width. And depth is security and width is in networking is known for wealth. So let's see, I had a couple of notes. As your leaders develop, you want to try to have a page for each of your key leaders and look at who some of those leaders are, because you want to help your leaders get at least 3 levels deep as quickly as possible. And as you get bigger and busier, it's hard to have any time, you know what I mean? Because you want to be still doing some recruiting. You want to be, people have you doing 3 ways. But the people who are your leaders deserve that time. So you try to, in each of your legs, there's some leaders that you have that they really don't need help, but there's others that if you can take some of your time and allocate it to them, it's going to make all the difference in the world. So those are some of the things. With final thing I'd say is success loves speed. That 90-day run, Eric Worre did that survey of all of the top earners. Every single one of them did it that he interviewed. And it's basically working as hard as you can for 90 days. That tough love that I talked about. I know I can depend on myself to work hard, and that's what kicks in the belief. I know I can make it to the top of the compensation plan because I know I'm going to work that hard. And if I asked Michael, he'd say the same thing. And if I asked Jerry, he'd say the same thing. He knows he'll put in the work to do it. So those are some of the things. I love Napoleon Hill. There's a story that's my favorite. I think probably one of the favorite stories I've heard in networking. A blind boy paid his way to a master's degree at Northern University by taking notes on class lectures in Braille, typing them, and selling copies to classmates who had stronger eyes but weak ambition. And so, one of the great mysteries of life is why some people who have all of the advantages, this is Napoleon saying this, the right connections, education, and experience never seem to amount to much, while others who have had to struggle for everything they have, I was poor too, Jerry, our family was poor, reach incredible heights of success. It hinges on determination. And if you have the will to succeed, you'll find a way regardless. So the last thing I'd like to say is check in on your thoughts. Don't be a demotivational speaker, even to yourself. When negative things happen, be the strength in the storm, that still point, because they always happen. They happen in any business, no matter what. And, if you can keep that positive, happy attitude, even for yourself, it takes a lot of courage to be your own hero, but start thinking of yourself that way and you'll see remarkable changes happening. So that's what I wanted to add.
Beautiful. I love the fact that you can just hand a topic to each of these guys and they just nail it because why? They've done it. They've got the finger on the pulse. And I love the fact that in this industry, we're not opening up a theoretical book on Eric Worre and saying, well, what Eric said you should do. And sometimes you see that happen in some companies. We're talking to people who've actually done it. They're sharing what they did. So thank you, Karen. Thank you, Jerry. While you were saying that, some thoughts came to me. And, essentially what we're talking about here is how do you turn a wish into a vision map? Because the difference is mapping out all the steps. Putting up the vision board and going, I'm going to be a crown, and writing the word financial freedom. What's financial freedom? To someone that's $100,000 a year, to the next person that's $500,000 a year. Who knows? What is financial freedom? And what are you going to do with that financial freedom? What does that mean to you? For me, my emotional driver way back before Neumi was my daughter, who said to me she felt like a visitor because I was working in the corporate world like most people. people and hardly seeing my daughter. So that was the emotional driver. You have to have that sort of stuff mapped out. I wrote down something too, which you sparked this thought, Karen. There's another great book I read years ago called Return of the Rag Picker by Og Mandino. What a weird name, Og Mandino. But Return of the Rag Picker, if you read it, it talks about, I could sum it up with a book wrap right now. People who dedicate their lives to bettering others live longer. So it might sound selfish, but you want to live longer, stop making it about you. Go out there and do something that will make a difference to the world. You'll have a purpose. You'll bounce out of bed all the time. And I've jokingly said this to Liz sometimes. I do Neumi even if they didn't pay me. I probably wouldn't because she'd go, you need to get some money. But I love it that much that I would still do it because I love helping people. I love transforming people's lives. I love nothing more than someone writing down a vision map and then achieving it. And the feeling you get from knowing you've helped somebody to do that is just irreplaceable. The other thing is too, is the belief that Karen referred to. Can you do it? And this is where the peak-to-peak principle comes in. So when I was in Indonesia, we had a picture of this, and I'm not going to change slides right now to show you, but we had Everest. And I said, how do you get to the top of Everest? You don't just walk once, I'm going to climb to Everest. You go to the base camp a few times, then you go from the base camp to this camp a few times, then you go from that camp to that camp, and then you make the final one, which is, the final ascent to the top of Everest. And the same in network marketing. You might be on here right now going, oh, it's all right for Ken Jerry, they're crowns. I don't believe I could be a crown. So this is where you put the vision board up. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 1 year? Talk to an upline and map out what that looks like, what income equals the outcomes that you're after, and what you want to achieve in your life. But then have something you believe in, and you have to believe, because belief is the biggest part of it. And that's where the peak to peak comes in. Because you don't have to believe that I can be a crown, but I can believe that I can go from 1 star to 2 star. I can believe that I can start right now and be a senior member at the end of the month. And these are the sort of things really to map out as well. So I'd encourage you to, I'm going to cover some other stuff in one sec, but I'd encourage you to find a SPA partner. And that could be your direct upline, could be an upline further up, could be a downline. Maybe you're on the inside of someone's leg and all the people above have quit, whatever. If it is to be, it's up to me. Don't make that an excuse. Make it a reason. Go downline, get a couple of your group together and do a SPA session with you all do the vision mapping. You can make an excuse that my upline's not active, or you could take charge. Which one are you going to do? There's no excuse there, right? So I'm just going to go back to the slides, and I noticed that Alex hasn't been able to get here, so I apologize. He was going to join us today, but he got stuck in this traffic, and he did say he might be quite tight. But I'm just going to go back to the slides now. I want you to pull out a pen and paper as I go through just a couple of comments on this one. So give me a sec. All right. So if we go back to the vision. So right now, please write down that within the next 7 days, you're going to book a time with an upline, a downline, a SPA partner, somebody where you're going to sit down and talk about and just put pen to paper the things that you heard Jerry talk about. Who do you want to be? What do you want your life to stand for, right? And maybe you do say, and not try to put words in your mouth, maybe you do want to be a crown. When are you going to be a crown? Is the crown in 12 months? Is it in 2 years? It is in 5 years? So just put a list of vision down. You don't need to know how you're going to achieve any of that. Being mindful, as I said, at the same time, get a wheel of life out with the different aspects of financial life, spiritual life, business life. And I agree with Karen. The two these days are combined. I had an upline in another company who I won't mention his name, but he said to me once when he was bringing someone into the team that I knew was dodgy because of what he was doing in his personal life, he said, your personal life and your business life are separate. I said, if you believe that, good luck. It's going to blow up in your face down the track. And of course it did. That individual imploded because his personal life became public and all the dodgy things he was doing destroyed his credibility as a leader. So, I believe what Karen said, your spiritual life and your business life are combined in that your integrity and your heart should be the same. You can't be one person in one aspect and another one. So with the wheel of life, think about your family, think about your financial side. I'll be the first to throw myself on the sword and tell you this. When I went to Indonesia, one of their segments in their 3-day event we did was financial management. And I said, that's why I have Liz. I am really bad at financial management. I'm just being honest. Liz is amazing at it. So I've gone, you run the savings account, the spending account, and I just do what I'm told now and spend money when I'm allowed to. But that's a smart thing because Steve talks about, your effective partnering, or, what's your Achilles heel? Well, my Achilles heel is now managed by Liz, and it's a great relationship, great partnership. So that's the vision. So sit down, map it up. Where do you want to be in 12 months, 5 years, 3 years, 12 months, 6 months? Where do you want to be in 90 days, as we talked about? So that's the goal setting aspect, right? Sit down and write those down. You don't need to know specifically, but just theoretically. I love saying this, actually. Steve won't mind me saying this. Steve sat with one of the number one investor, who's a family friend of mine. And Steve, as we know, is a big picture guy, and this guy was a detail guy. And he said to Steve, I need a business plan. And Steve said, that's not worth the paper it's written on. He said, well, if you want 1 cent from me, you're going to have one. And then I sat and observed these meetings as they got to the point of negotiation. At one point, Steve said, $4 billion in sales says I don't need a business plan. And I know John turned around and said, if you want 1 cent, you're going to get me one. Right. And eventually Steve drew out a business plan. And because you need to have some sort of plan, because if you aim at nothing, you are going to hit it with spectacular accuracy. So what are you aiming at if you don't have specifics? Great to have the vision board, but if you don't have specifics of breaking it down on steps slowly up Everest, and that's where the peak to peak comes in. Maybe working with an upline or someone who's got some knowledge can tell you, listen, I know you've just said you want to be a crown in the next 6 months, but you've not even introduced your first person. Is that really a smart goal? Maybe let's break it down. What are you going to do in the next 30 days, right? And that's when it comes to the activity steps. And back to what Karen said before, is a 90-day plan, a 90-day run. I did 3 90-day run back to back in the first year, and that's how I hit crown. And so I was obsessed, and I had a big reason why, because I'd lost everything financially. So I was motivated. I didn't need motivating. I had a burning building behind me, if you like. So I was really going to push hard. So with those activity steps, there is lots of groups around the world right now, and I'm doing it as well with Philippines, with Australia, New Zealand, where we're doing a 90-day blitz. And what I've said to these guys is, okay, where do you want to be in 90 days? Let's map that out and put some figures to it. And I said, worst case scenario in the mapping out with these guys, I said, you could be worst case scenario, be a 2-star. What does that mean to you? Well, you're going to have about ballpark $30,000 a year at the end of 2025 compared to last year, extra income, ballpark. And that's not an income guarantee. I'm just saying a ballpark. What would you do with that? That's if you only got to 2-star in the next 90 days. In fact, we mapped it out and said that if they got through to 2-star, then by the 6-month period, which happens to be the end of the qualification for the Diamond Retreat, they would be qualified to go to the Diamond Retreat as well. So have you mapped that out? Have you stepped all of that out? So start with your big picture, reason why. Think about the wheel of life, family, financial, whatever. Come back to the goal setting. Where is it in 12 months? Where is it in 6 months? Where is it in 90 days? Peak to peak principle. But then to the activity steps. What are you going to do this week? Now, at this point, this is the most important part of all of this. In everyone who's doing the current blitz and the 90-day blitz, and I love to give credit where credit's due, the 130-10 concept came from Alex. If you haven't watched that, that's one of our training videos in your app. But the cycle concept, doing cycles, came from Italo. And Italo is someone who's been in the industry for decades, and he encouraged us to chunk it down just to 30 names, cycles, because people believe I can make 10 calls today, 10 calls tomorrow, 10 calls the next day. In our current blitz, I said to them, if you don't believe that, which is a baby, tiny, weeny step, halve it. What about 5 calls today, 5 calls the next day, 5 calls the next day, and then next week, 5 calls, 5 calls, 5 calls, and then some follow-up. That's such a tiny little step. But if you do that and you don't have, my goal is to knock off a cycle having contacted X amount of people from 7 days from now, if you aim at nothing, you will hit it with spectacular accuracy. You have to put a little bit of pressure on yourself to have the baby steps. So I want you to pat yourself on the back for the activity, not the results. All the brand new people are on this blitz here in Australia at the moment. I said, guys, if you find, and one lady did, if you find yourself saying, listen, I've spoken to 10 people and I haven't had a good success rate, what are you doing? Focus on the activity. Have you done a cycle? Have you contacted 30 people in the last 7 days or 14 days, whatever it is for you. If you've done that, pat yourself on the back because the results will take care of itself. I think it was Jerry or Karen talked about intensity, and intensity breeds excitement. So if you just focus on the activity, we know statistically what's going to happen. Now, you might have poor results compared to somebody else gets better results. That'll have more to do with their internal belief, the trust, the influence, the rapport, the relationships they have with their contacts versus someone who goes out and speaks to cold contacts first up. I would encourage you to start with your warm contacts with that instead. And then the number one thing out of all of this is if you've mapped those out and you know you're going to do your cycle, first cycle in the next 7 days, that's all you're going to focus on. How do you get your crown in 5 years or 3 years or 2 years or 1 year, whatever you're doing? Start now. Journey 1,000 miles begins with one step. So that's why we're saying the most important part of all of this is what? We need you to make sure that you start immediately. The year has begun. We're middle of January right now. And the reason we scheduled this event right now here, and we've been doing a lot of vision mapping and goal setting with the teams externally, is because we know, and I said this to corporate, in Australia, it's beautiful and sunny right now. Some people say in the Northern Hemisphere, August is a quiet period. I'm like, it's not in Australia because it's freezing. But we have to wake everybody up by the middle of January and go, come on, the year has started. So if you haven't done your vision mapping and you haven't mapped out your goals and your activity steps, now it is the middle of January. Wake up. If you want to achieve something of substance in 2025, you need to start moving now. You need to start getting things happening immediately. And the excuse of Monday, the diet starts Monday, or I'm going to do it on Monday, I'll do it next week. BS. Do something today to start yourself moving towards your dreams. So we've run up to 45 minutes, and that's what the maximum we said we would do today. So Alex, I apologize, mustn't have got back in time, but Alex being my up, I want to acknowledge this, just like, you know, we've acknowledged Jerry and Karen. We wouldn't be here, none of us, not one of us, if it wasn't for Alex and his relationship with Steve Scott. And I want to thank him as a mentor, because everything I've just talked to you didn't come out of my head. It came from working with someone like Alex. He had achieved Crown in the past in another company. I'd never done it. So I said, you tell me, how do we do this? Because I can't teach something that I haven't done. You've done it. Tell me, how did you get to Crown? And he mapped out exactly what we've just talked about, almost word for word. And that's what he taught me. So I hope you got a lot out of today's session. I want to thank Karen. I want to thank Jerry. And hopefully we're giving you a 360-degree view here, because everyone added something complementary to the others' discussion about each aspect of that. But my wish, my prayer, my aspiration for you to come out of this session is that within the next 3 to 5 days, if you haven't done it, you lock a time in and you do your vision map right down to the activity steps. And then 2025, every single one of you can be a diamond or a crown with Neumi. It's going to be the biggest year we have ever seen. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening.